I want you to sit with these two cards for a second. Really look at them. On one side, we have Pikachu. Bright, iconic, instantly recognizable. It's the face of a billion-dollar franchise. It's beloved. Pikachu is the kind of thing that doesn't need an explanation. It just belongs. And on the other side, we have Mimikyu. Mimikyu is a Pokemon that literally lives its entire life inside a disguise. It wears a rag, a hand-drawn, tattered imitation of Pikachu, because it believes deep down that if people saw what it actually looked like, they wouldn't love it. They wouldn't even look at it. Mimikyu isn't chasing power. It isn't trying to be the strongest in the meta. It's just chasing belonging. And here's why I'm telling you this, and why it's been weighing on my mind lately. Because this isn't just about Pokemon. This is a human thing. You see, we wear masks every single day. At work, online, in our friendship, in our roles, even as parents. And hobbies as well. The very things that are supposed to be our escape, we are all in some way wearing a rag. Today I want to talk about why pretending, even when it's working, is quietly exhausting us, and how we can finally start taking the mask off. Let me be very clear. This video is about Pokemon, but it's really not about Pokemon. See, Pokemon is just the mirror. Whether it's cards or your career, your friendships, your social media feed, we've built entire systems around appearing okay instead of actually being okay. And the scary part, the part that keeps me up, is most of us don't even realize when the mask became permanent. It starts small. You clean up what you show to the world, you soften the edges of your personality, and you highlight the wins. You hide the messy parts of your life because they don't fit the brand. And until one day you wake up and you don't know where the mask ends and where you begin. Mimikyu's story is heartbreaking in its simplicity. It's not a deceptive Pokemon. It isn't evil. It isn't greedy for fame. It just wants what Pikachu has, acceptance. So it copies the thing that is already loved. And here's the uncomfortable truth. That is exactly what we do. You see, we look at what society celebrates, what the algorithm rewards, and what our workplace promotes, and we shape our identity completely around that. We don't do it because it's authentic. We do it because it feels safer. We'd rather be a loved imitation than a rejected original. In my career as a behavior interventionist, I see this every single day. We call it social masking. Masking is when we hide parts of ourselves to fit in, to avoid judgment, to gain approval, or to just appear put together. And look, masking isn't always bad. We all do it to an extent. You wouldn't act the same way at a funeral as you do at a football game. But the danger comes when masking becomes your default setting, when you can't turn it off. Think about the employee who is always fine, despite the 60-hour work weeks. Think about the parent who never admits they are drowning because they want to look like they have it all under control. Think about the friend who keeps the jokes coming, so no one ever really asks how they're doing. It looks functional from the outside, but inside it's really heavy. And what makes this worse? Upward comparison. We don't compare ourselves to real people anymore. We compare ourselves to a curated highlight reel. We are Mimikyu looking for a photoshopped Pikachu and wondering why our rag doesn't look as good. But here's the secret. No one can compete with a highlight reel. Not even the person who posted it. You see, comparison doesn't just steal your joy, it rewrites your identity. You start asking these toxic questions, such as, am I doing enough? Is my collection big enough? Am I interesting enough to be here? Am I allowed to enjoy this? You see that last one, am I allowed, is the tell. Joy shouldn't need a permit. But when everything is measured, when everything is ranked, and when everything is monetized, joy becomes conditional. You start feeling like you can only be happy if you're winning. And that's how burnout sneaks in. It doesn't come with a bang. It's quiet. It's polite. It uses logic to tell you that you're failing at your hobby. And once you believe that, you're already exhausted. The Pokemon TCG just makes this psychological trap easier to see because the value is visible. We have numbers, we have grades, we have comps and charts that tell us exactly what a card is worth. So we start believing a lie. If my cards aren't worth anything, maybe I don't matter much. It sounds absurd when you say it out loud, but emotionally it hits. So we hide the cards we actually love, the ones with the scratches and the memories, and we showcase the cards that impress. We stop collecting for connection. Instead, we start collecting for validation. That right there, that's the Pikachu costume. We're hiding our true joy under a layer of market value. And I know I talk about cards a lot, but this pattern is everywhere. As said earlier, in our careers, we think, I should be further along by now. Why am I not a manager? Why don't I have that title? In our relationships, we see a couple on a beach in Hawaii on Instagram and think, why aren't we that happy? In our parenting, we see the perfect mom or dad and feel like a failure because our house is a mess and our kids are screaming. So we adapt. We polish the image, we perform. And slowly, piece by piece, we lose touch with what actually matters to us. We're so busy maintaining the mask that we don't have any energy left to actually live. There's a phrase I find myself coming back to consistently in my work. It's called identity erosion. It's what happens when your choices stop reflecting your values, when your joy depends entirely on an external approval, and when your sense of self becomes reactive instead of proactive. You're still functioning, you're still winning the game, but you're disconnected. And here's the brutal irony. You can be praised, you can be successful, you can be admired by thousands, and you still feel completely empty. Because none of that praise is for you, it's for the mask. Mimikyu gets the hug, but the creature underneath is still alone. At some point, most of us will hit a wall. It's usually not a dramatic breakdown, it's a quiet one. It's that moment on a Tuesday afternoon when you realize, I don't hate this, but I don't love it either. That's the signal. That's the check engine light for your soul. That is Mimikyu under the costume, wondering if anyone would stay if the disguise came off. If you're feeling that right now, I want you to know that it's actually a good thing because it means you're finally ready to change the game. So, how do we fix it? The fixing isn't quitting your job. It isn't selling your whole collection, and it isn't abandoning ambition. It's redefining what value looks like for you. External value asks, what does this look like to others? Where internal value asks, how does this feel to me? External value is volatile. It crashes. It changes with the trends. But internal value, that's quiet, and it's stable. It's the foundation that prevents burnout. Here is something practical you can do today in your life or your hobby. I call it internal value audit. I want you to pick 5 things in your life that don't impress anyone, that carry 0 social status, that don't earn you any likes or validation, but matter deeply to you. In Pokemon, that might be a $2 card that reminds you of your brother. In life, it might be that 20 minutes in the morning where you drink coffee in silence. It might be a specific way you play with your kids. And it might be a creative outlet that honestly you're bad at, but you love anyway. Write them down. Ask yourself, why does this matter to me? That answer, that's your compass. That is the real you stepping out from under the rag. People think burnout comes from working too hard. I don't believe that. Burnout comes from misalignment. It comes from pouring 100% of your energy into things that don't reflect who you actually are. When your values are external, you always are going to be chasing the finish line, and that moves. But when your values are internal, you're grounded. You stop being exhausted because you're no longer performing. You're just being. And look, if you build things, if you sell cards, if you lead a team, if you're a creator, this matters more to you. People don't connect to perfection. Perfection is intimidating. It's cold. People connect to truth. They trust people who are consistent, not people who are impressive. Authenticity doesn't scale as fast as a hype mask does, but it lasts. When you show up as yourself, you stop attracting followers and you start attracting a community. And a community will support the real you. A following will only support the mask. So here's the real question, the big one. What mask are you wearing right now that you no longer need? What part of yourself have you been hiding? Not because it's wrong, but because it's vulnerable. I'm telling you that where your freedom starts, the moment you stop pretending to be okay and start being real, is the moment when exhaustion stops happening. You don't have to be Pikachu to be worthy of love. You really don't. Mimikyu isn't broken. It's just misunderstood. And honestly, so are a lot of us. You don't need permission to enjoy what you love. You don't need a high grade to have a high value life. The most valuable thing you will ever own isn't a PSA 10 grail. It's a life and a hobby that actually feels like yours. So I want to ask you one more time. What's the Mimikyu in your life? What is that thing that isn't impressive, isn't a flex, but you would never give it up? Please tell me in the comments. Let's talk about the real stuff for once. I'm JB. This is Retro Game TCG. Take the mask off, and I'll see you in the next one.